Hello and welcome back to the Everything Canada Soccer podcast, episode number 12, if my memory serves me correctly. I'm your host, Jordy, and accompanied always by Felipe right here. How you doing, Felipe?
I'm doing good, Jordy. How about you?
Doing not too bad. A little tired today. Just had my first day of university, so
Cool.
adjusting back to that whole student life is a little bit challenging. But hey, we move,
Yeah,
do what we
being
do.
there. Yep.
Yeah, right. So today on today's schedule, we didn't really go through the Canadian Premier League last week when you were talking. We kind of had a little discussion about players in Europe and how that they're doing. So now that we've kind of covered that, they did play in Europe this week. However, didn't really do too much. So we're going to instead talk about our domestic league, the Canadian Premier League, which is in its fourth season. Technically, its third full season, if you want to say technically second, because last year started in like a bubble. But this
Yeah.
season has been by far the best season. So many surprises, so many upsets, and so many players that have moved on from this league to Europe and other places. It's so exciting to see that that is the purpose of this league. And so, we're just going to start by looking at the table and seeing what surprises us. Right there is the first surprise, the first expansion team ever in CPL history, Atletico Ottawa, in first position. Did you expect them to be at this position there, Felipe? Because I sure did not.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, like, of course, um, when Atletico opened this expansion, people had high expectations because it's an European club opening an
Mm,
expansion here, seeing other expansions through Red Bull and CE Group and things like that. But at the same time, their first season was kind of a failure, in my opinion,
mm-hmm,
when it comes about performance, right? So from the beginning of the season, no, zero expectations of them being in the top four, right? So
yeah.
seeing them leading, it's definitely a surprise. Now they deserve it. I mean, they earn it, right? So um, yeah, it is a surprise for me, but I'm actually happy to see Atletico there.
Yeah, I think it's good, as we all know when we've watched Cavalry and Forge kind of take the headlines, and they are just below them, of course, but it's nice for a new team to kind of break into that mold, because then it
Yep.
shows that this league is definitely competitive more than a lot of other leagues in the world that we can think of, which is saying a lot because it's a brand new league. We want to keep everything competitive. We don't want one team to just walk away. That was the fear last year with Forged in the final. Like, oh, are they going to three-peat? Is this going to become a bit of a boring league? Gladly Pacific
Yep.
were able to stop that right in its tracks, and now we have a new challenger. And if Atletico Ottawa stays in this position, remember they do enter the qualifying rounds of the CONCACAF Champions League, which I think is massive now that we have two spots. So
Yep.
whoever finishes first, for those who don't know, whoever finishes first in this league enters the continental competition, the CONCACAF Champions League, which, if you're familiar, is like the UEFA Champions League, except it's with North America. Now
Yep.
we get two spots, one for that, and the second one is for the playoffs. So whoever wins the CPL playoffs and is the eventual winner of the CPL, they get a second berth. And I think if it's the same team that finishes first and wins the league, then it goes to the second best team in the league. I think that's what the tiebreaker is, which I think is fair. Second best team in the league, I think, deserves it. But I think it would be exciting to see Atletico Ottawa, in the CONCACAF Champions League. I think they do. I think what they've shown this season is that they are very resilient. If we remember back, I think it was game week 2 or 3 where they got battered 6-1 to Valor FC, and now they're leading the league, and they've pretty much stayed at the top of this division for a large chunk of the season. I think it's
Yeah.
deserved.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Like you said, I agree. Of course, like in terms of performance, you can see they're like they're not a team that score the most goals. They're not a team that's the best defense, right? Like the best defense,
Hmm.
but they're pretty consistent, at least recently, and they were able to overcome what the beginning of the season as well. I actually forgot about the loss to Valor, but now you're
Hmm.
bringing the memories. It's true, and there was quite a few actually in the beginning of the season. Quite a few losses, not from them, but from different teams that were quite elastic. Like this score was quite big, was more than 4 goals. But on the top four, what I think is interesting is also to see Valor there. Of course, Pacific, it's pretty close. It's going to be a fight all the way to the end. I really hope that Forge falls down because the Cavs are playing Forge next match, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be pretty cool them losing it, Valor going up. But yeah, I don't know. Like I think it would be good for the league not having Forge. It's okay to have Pacific. It would be cool them seeing them fighting for trying to win back to back. But since they lost Alejandro Diaz, I think you were saying that before.
Yeah,
it's been a total, not a total disaster, but has been they were kicked out of the North American
the CONCACAF League. I
the
think
CONCACAF League. Yep, they were kicked out of the CONCACAF League, and they've been quite they're being pretty inconsistent on their games and their performance on the CPL. So I don't know what direction they're going, but yeah, it's quite like it's a team that we will expect to be top 2, like maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, right? And then now they're out of the top 4, right? So
yeah,
I would rather see them there than Forge, but again, that's just my opinion. Sorry for Forge fans. It's just Forge went too many times. Let other teams have their opportunity for the next year.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not like letting other teams have the opportunity, but I think it goes to show it's a mature league when I think multiple teams win it. Like we've seen a couple times in the semi-professional leagues in Ontario, where the winner of that goes into the knockout rounds of the Canadian Championship. And I know Vaughan Azzurri is one of them, and I think there's another club I can't remember, which is like, there's always like 2 or 3 clubs that always win the league, and that's okay, but it shows that there's not enough love for the other clubs and a bit of a disorganized league in terms of there's not enough. It's not competitive enough. Like we see, like with the Premier League for the most part, despite if you take away these last 5 years that have mostly been Manchester City, it's usually shared between like 6 clubs, about 4. Sorry, maybe about 4 or 5 clubs, which is good for a top elite European league. But for a league that only has 8 teams, soon to be 9 teams, you should be having different winners every single season. You should not be left with just 1 or 2. But I think it's good. It shows that the league is competitive. It shows that everyone, for the most part, is learning and developing still. Like we're not the finished product at all, and our purpose is to definitely promote Canadian content. But I think it's in a very good. I think it's in a very good spot at the moment. I'm looking at positions 1 down to 5. There's 5 points that separates that. And let's say, for example, Forge and Pacific win their next games, then it's only 4-point difference between 1 and 5. So anyone right now can win the league. Anyone right now can make the playoffs. And anyone can play at different positions. Like it can still change in 5 game weeks time. We'll look and see a completely different table, I think. I don't think it'll stay the same.
Of course, like it's quite competitive. It's exactly what you said. A lot of teams are playing against each other, right? So I don't see us having this exactly same table in 2-3 weeks from now. But it should stay at least this top 5 right there. It should stay quite consistent. I think that York, Halifax, and Edmonton are out of the race. But I could be wrong. They could surprise me. But by my opinion, I think those 3 teams are out of the race, right? So we are going to see a pretty consistent top 5. It's just going to change the position from what those teams are right now. But
if we look at their games, I'll go through their games from 5th to 1st and see who they play, and I'll show you that it's not going to change. It's going to change a lot. Pacific, for example, play Atletico, then at home to Forge. Then they take a trip to Halifax, then Edmonton, but then again they're back playing Forge and Cavalry. They play Forge twice, and they're below them. So that could completely change the look of that bottom part. If we go to Valor, for example, they play Halifax and York in the next. They play Halifax, York, and Edmonton, but the other two games are Atletico and Cavalry. Again, two teams right above them that they could overtake with those games. Forge, again, the next game's Cavalry, then Pacific. Then they take a couple trips to York and Edmonton, and then again play Pacific, obviously. Cavalry, it's even harder. Forge, then a quick stop to Edmonton, which they'll probably pick up 3 points because that's what they always do. Then it's Atletico, Valor, and Pacific. Cavalry play first, third, fourth, and fifth. That is probably the most rotten schedule that Tommy Wheeldon could ask for. And then lastly, Atletico plays Pacific, then Valor, then Cavalry, and then they actually get a little easier with York and Halifax. But York and Halifax have proved to be a bit annoying at times when you need points, especially as a Cavalry fan. York United always seems to be that fifth, like we'll win like 3 or 4 games in a row, and then we play York, and they just decide just to completely tear us apart. So they're just one of those. They're like just a team that just decides to just put a rock in our way. It's so much harder.
Yeah, it's a rough path, and I like exactly what you said. As a Cap fans, I share the same thoughts as you. So
yeah,
cool.
But yeah.
Another thing that I think was pretty cool that happened. We have since we haven't discussed that in a while, we can go over fast about that. But we had quite a few players leaving the league through this past European window, and of course, some left to play the NLS Pro, like the next Pro competition, like Lou Wright from what's the name, York. Well, there's quite a few other players that left to play the league, but looking at Europe League, I feel like quite a few players left to Europe as well, and that's pretty cool for the Canadian Premier League. We have Alejandro Diaz, William Akio, Victor Loturi, Tristan Borges. Those are all players that left to go play in Europe. If it wasn't in Scotland, it was maybe in Denmark or Norway or something like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, on players leaving, I think it's honestly, I'm so excited. Whenever it sucks being a fan of a team where you have a player leave because you're playing really well with them. Like I think if Cavalry hadn't got rid of Luturi and who else left? Why can't I think of their name? Someone else left this season that I can't quite put my tongue on. But
from the Cavs,
I thought it was 2. It was Luturi and right. It was Peppo. Yeah.
Peppo left to Luton Town,
yeah,
right?
Luton Town. He's on loan at Grimsby Town, yeah. But like we were the best in the league by far with those 2 in our squad, and having those 2 leave, it's exciting and it's good, yes, don't get me wrong. But it also hurts so much because you get into a rhythm, they're playing well, and then all of a sudden they just get plucked out of nowhere, and then you're left to deal with everything else. And I am very it's like it sucks for a fan just to like want to watch your team win, but I think it's extremely good for the league. It shows that we are reputable, that we can send players over to top countries that produce top talents, and it shows that countries are looking at us as well. Like we're not just some country, like we're not like a Cyprus or Moldovan league where no one really pays much attention. Like there's some decent talent, some hidden gems in Canada that finally are being given the tools and process to be able to showcase their skills and to get out of Canada, which is what's been a problem for forever. I mean, players like Davies and Jonathan David and like a couple others are like such it's such anomalies. Like it never really happens that way. But now that we have the Canadian Premier League, I think more players will eventually, find their way. Like for example, Joel Waterman, he's this close to a call up to the World Cup. Whether or not he makes it, we'll see. But as he continues his form in Montreal, that former CPL player could be playing in a World Cup. Like that's like a couple of years ago when we started the league. It was like this is going to take like a decade to get someone in the World Cup, but it's almost happened in 4 years.
Yeah, we had a discussion about national team, but we didn't mention his name. But he would be a pretty good CB to go as a bench for Vitoria for this current World Cup. As exactly for the current form that he's having. I actually thought about that this week. And yeah, you're right. He was playing for the Cavs a few seasons ago, right? So from the Cavs to the MLS and potentially to Europe. He has the size and the ability to be able to make in Europe, which is the difference from Kamal Miller. Kamal Miller is a really good defender, but I feel like because of his size, undersized defenders tend to. I mean, don't get me wrong, right? Lisandro Martinez, it's considered undersized for the Premier League, right? And he's a beast, at least at the beginning of the season. But overall, for them to be scouted and moved, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say that they cannot perform there. I'm trying to say that a club needs to have their eyes on it. And then, you know what I mean? Like, in order to have interest, right? They're usually going to have on the more athletic guy, on the tall guy that has a good timing on the ball in the air, but also can play with their feet. You know what I mean? Yeah. Has good agility. And I think Waterman falls under that category. He has a good size for a defender. He has a good. He can work with the ball on his foot. Like, he's not that bad with the ball on his foot. So he could definitely play a league like Portuguese league or something like that. So you're absolutely right. He's a step closer for sure.
Yeah. No, I think that the league, like I was saying before, the league is in a very good spot. I think that the way that it continues, hopefully this new commissioner can continue the good path that we are on. I think without a good direction that the league has been on, a little bit of trouble. Just because of need like a commissioner to like organize and just sit up top and look pretty. I think we need someone who can get down, organize deals, organize sponsorships in order to get us on the map a bit more. I still think that there's definitely a lot of opportunity for that as well to improve as a whole. For one example, like, don't get me wrong, Fubo TV is a decent little streaming service, but we need something a bit more available to the public, like almost like a cable. I know cable's kind of in a weird spot right now. Some people love it. Some like older generations love it. Newer generations maybe not so much. But no one really wants to. People just want to watch the sport. They don't want to have to watch it behind a paywall.
I think that you gotta go into mainstream. Sorry for interrupting you, but just to say it, I think like you gotta go into mainstream channels digitally as well. Like, just for you to have an idea, right? Like, the Libertadores, like the South America Champions League. During the group phase, they actually had some games for free on Facebook, right? So you could actually go to their Facebook page. You had to follow their page, and you could watch the live streaming in English from anywhere in the world. So that's pretty good. So they have the streaming rights, and they sell the streaming rights to license channels, right? Like it can be Fox Sports, so it can be ESPN, which is TSN in Canada, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So my point is, like, if the league has the rights to sell that, they can easily sell to channels, strategically speaking, that has a better audience than just Fubo TV. And that does not necessarily need to be cable. Cable, it's all right, but it's exactly what you said. I don't even have cable at my house, man. You know what I mean? And I'm older than you. I'm not much older than you, but I'm older than you. You know what I mean? I don't have cable at my house. I haven't had cable in like 6 years in Canada. It's been literally just online streaming since I've been in university. You know what I mean? So it's literally like, I don't know, bro. Like, I don't know who. Like, maybe you do, but
I think the free streaming way is. I think that's good to go, because I think it was a week and a half ago the CPL had games on YouTube. And I thought that was like, that's odd. I didn't really see any advertising for that. Maybe I just missed it. But I think that's a good way to tap into, especially the younger generation. You think when I was like 12 years old, I was on YouTube. Not as much, but kids are much more available to that now. Like, that's where you're gonna, if you watch football like just by yourself on like Fubo or DAZN or whatever it is when you're young, you're gonna be watching that type of stuff on YouTube, and eventually that'll get recommended to you. So I
Yeah,
think
no,
pushing YouTube through multiple games of the year, just throw some ads on at the beginning but when you click on it, you'll get ad revenue, obviously. Maybe not as much, but
or even if
you'll
it's
get
a
more
small
viewers.
subscription, you're still gonna get viewers. Like for example, Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime in Brazil, people in South America have streaming of the Brazilian Cup just
Yeah.
because, like that's a deal that they did. They were one of their sponsors, the ones that have the bars on the side of the field,
Yeah.
and then they sell the streaming, and they made the deal. What if we do the streaming of the high end games, the games that have the best clubs,
Hmm.
or the first division clubs playing, like the ones that have the most fans? What if we stream them on Amazon, and then people can just let's say they're choosing a TV show to watch together at night, and they like football, they might just start watching a game, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't on Amazon in Canada. That was the bad thing. It's like it was just concentrated in a piece of the continent. But it's still, that's a pretty good deal. If that was in Canada, I guarantee you get more viewers, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So even if it's in a paid subscription service, I feel like it's still the benefit if you're using a mainstream digital channel that we have available nowadays compared to just your cable.
Hmm.
Because cable involves multiple other things, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
endorsements play a big role in cable TV. That's one of the main discussions of women's sport being on TV. Don't get me wrong, I'm all about equality, and I think women should have the same opportunity as men's. But because cable works based on the amount of viewers, that's what they're interested in having the most.
Hmm.
For that same reason, we ended up not having as many women's sport on cable TV, which I find it wrong. It should be more equal.
Yeah.
But they are pro profit. They are not pro sport or pro people or pro promotion. They're pro money, right?
Yeah.
So there is a difference in between that and the channels that are available digitally for a monthly fee that gives you access to different things. There is a different perception on that. Of course, they
Mhm.
are pro money, but it works a bit differently than
Yeah. I
how
think.
we work with cable.
Yeah. No. Of course, if you can find a way to monetize it in a proper way, I think that's definitely the way to go. For example, for me, the DFB Pokal in Germany, the cup tournament there, they used to. I'm not. They didn't do it this. No, they did do it this year. No, last year and the years prior, they posted all their games live. They streamed them through YouTube, and that's their cup
Yeah,
game. And then the third division in Germany, the three Liga, they again YouTube for free each one of their a lot of games.
yeah,
Now their cup games are on DAZN, but they transitioned from a free service and then were able to put it on a paid service. So I think the CPL has to look into that a little bit more just to make it more just available to everyone. They
yeah.
had games on CBC on the first season, and all of a sudden it stopped. I don't know the reason why. Maybe CBC dropped it, but it's a Canadian broadcasting service that should be promoting Canadian content. So I think the CPL and hopefully this commissioner can strike some deals, get it on cable, get it on YouTube, get it on every single source you can in Canada in order to promote this.
Yep, yep. Uh, cool, man. I feel like we'll should keep talking more about the CPL because it's getting hot. So it's a
Yeah,
good time to
no,
chat about it.
100%, man.
Yeah.
No, so CPL, watch it, soak it all in. It's getting exciting towards the end of the season. I am excited as a Cavalry fan at the business end of the season that we're still in contention for first position, and hopefully those of you that are watching, you'll be excited. Unless you're a Halifax, York, or Edmonton fan, I'm sorry, but for those of you that are still in contention, good luck to the season.
Hey, if you're a York fan, you should still be happy. I mean, like we were talking about that before. You got one of the best strikers in the league.
Yeah, Dwayne
Uh,
Dozori, yeah.
yeah, and if they had Babuli since the beginning of the season, maybe they would have the best attack in the league
All right, that's a
through
good
the whole
sign.
season. Because Babuli has been in good form. I think he scored against Forge even on his first match, right?
Yeah.
He didn't celebrate like you see,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
players that don't score. Like, I guess they're all goals. Or they're
Fair
all
enough.
teams. But yeah, I feel like even those teams, they have bright things to look for. I think the only fans that should be worried is Edmond. They should still find an owner
Oh,
and things
man.
like that. But we don't need to
Poor
keep talking
Edmonton.
about that. Yeah.
Oh, man.
All
Well,
I'm saying is everyone should still be happy.
yeah,
It's
everyone
still,
should still be happy. It's
yeah.
still a brand new league. No getting over it. There's no relegation yet. Eventually, there probably will be way down the line when we actually have enough teams for that. But it's a nationwide league. Just be happy that we have a league in general.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything else to add, Felipe?
No,
Anything burning in
thanks
that
for that.
mind of yours? No?
Yeah.
Perfect.
No.
So we'll leave you guys there. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Just a little quick rundown of the CPL towards the end of the season. Join us
Yeah.
on Monday when we release the leading up to the leading up to the World Cup. We'll talk a little bit more about the Canadian national team and our hopes and dreams for us winning a World Cup. But until then, we'll see you next time. I've been Jordy. Felipe has been Felipe. And we'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.